Well, hello, Marilee. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm absolutely honored and blessed to be the special guest tonight on Wellness Wednesday. In full transparency, activation was not something I sought out, simply because I wasn't using the word activation. So if I was going to do a Google search, as an example, I wouldn't type in activation because it wasn't a concept that I was even familiar with. And getting into the company, like you said, that we're both a part of, LifeVantage, I was not also seeking to become part of a company. In fact, the type of company, network marketing, I was extremely against. And not because I had ever done it, because I'd been pitched by almost everyone out there as a chiropractor. And they always put me in that situation of I have to be the spokesperson or the salesperson with no background to go by except someone else's experience and what the products did for them. And all of these people were strangers. And I would never put myself in that kind of a situation, nor would I ever put my patients in that situation. And I was not by any means saying that these people that were promoting this to me had anything other than altruistic reasons. It's just when it comes down to the scientific validity, if I can rely on that, then I don't have to be the spokesperson. And it literally comes down to the science says this. If you want what the science says, then you should buy the product. If you don't, then you shouldn't. It was that simple. And there was a reason for that. As you mentioned, I'm a chiropractor. I've been a chiropractor for almost 28 years. And when I practiced in Northern California, where I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic West out in Northern California. And I practiced there for 5 years. And then I moved here to Arizona and practiced here. Well, I'm guided mostly by my Christian beliefs. And so when I came here in 2003 with full expectations to just get my keys and start practice, moving from Northern California to here in Arizona, right outside Phoenix in Goodyear, Arizona, where I knew nobody, but I was ready for that challenge. In fact, I was looking forward to it, because there was 25 other chiropractors within 1 mile of my practice in California. So, and all of them had a different approach than I did. Not one was right, one was wrong, just different. And when there's 26 different approaches within 1 mile, it's kind of confusing to the public. And so I wanted to get my message, take it to a brand new audience, kind of a blank canvas, if you will. And so I looked forward to that. Well, when I got here, there was time delays, there was permit delays. I didn't get my keys for 3 months. And so I had no choice than to go out and meet people, which I'm kind of shy by nature, but I love to educate people, especially strangers who've never heard a message before. And there was only 700 chiropractors in the entire state of Arizona, and there was only 4 in my town. And I thought, 25 within 1 mile versus 4 in my entire town, I got this. And so I wanted to see, one, what are the legalities? What are the people around it? What is the local government here and my chiropractic board? What do they support or what do they not support? So I had this ability to go sit in on the courtrooms of chiropractors that were being brought up on charges. And there was a lot of them that were in the chiropractic board of examiners here in Arizona. In their opinion, they were involved in network marketing companies that didn't properly fit into chiropractic practice, like candles and press-on nails and things of that nature, which I would say that I agreed. If you want press-on nails, you're probably not going to go to a chiropractor for that. And if you want candles, and you live most people in the desert where it gets 120 degrees in the summertime don't want candles anyway. And this was before they were infused with essential oils. We're talking just illumination is like, hello, we have electricity for that. It's kind of an upgrade. So why would you sell your patient something that they probably don't need? And the only answer is because you get money for it. And they argued successfully. And I watched these chiropractors lose their licenses. And that just reaffirmed, I am not going to go down that road. But then there was one that was different. And it was actually for the benefit, the products were for the benefit of the patient. And they said, doctor, why did you dispense these products or sell these products to your patient? And this female doctor answered and argued very, very succinctly, because the patients came in with these symptoms. These products are shown to minimize these symptoms. And I was upholding my Hippocratic oath, which is first to do no harm, and second, do everything within my power to help my patients. And if I would not have recommended it to my patients, I would not have been upholding my chiropractic oath. And the examiners were not ready for, one, that level of defense, and two, holding them to account on what they were charging her for. And they said, awesome. And she showed clinical proof that the before and after the product usage, the patients were better off. But I realized I'm not going to do network marketing, but if something ever comes across my desk and I could have that as a recourse, because I've already seen it being done, then I'm in. And Little as God would have it, about 3 months later, a patient walked into my office talking about another company, which was not LifeVantage, but he spoke my language because I remembered that occurrence. But there was no science to back it up. So when I checked on PubMed for his products, I got 3 words: no results found. And I said, your story is very compelling, but unfortunately, the resources that I look to give the product's validity that I would incorporate into my office if it were there, don't think as highly of your product as you do, because I can't go on your testimonial or your stories of other people or your brochures. They may be great and colorful and compelling, but I will not leverage my personal professional reputation on that. But if that ever changes, please come back. And then I got the fateful call from my enroller, presidential consultant, Blue Elam, which changed the entire course of my life. And I get emotional when I think about that, because I think back, what if I never would have got that call? Because at that time in my life, I had the 4th largest practice in Arizona. And that might sound nice. And it was. We were helping between 350 and 500 patients a week. But what people didn't know is that I never saw my kids as a result of that. And I had a newborn daughter and a 3-year-old son at home that never saw daddy, because daddy was taking care of other kids while he was neglecting his own. That was my life story. My practice was 40% pediatric. And I realized one day, and I got on my knees and I said, Lord, give me a way out of this. I want to be a dad to my kids, not a fake dad for someone else's, or a healthcare provider. I want to be a full-time dad. And the story, 18 months later, I became a full-time person in LifeVantage, sold my practice. I was also an AM talk radio host. Every Saturday had an hour-long program. And I realized God he groomed me for what he has me doing now. And it is talking about these very products. So when we're talking about the whole difference in the approach behind what we do with activation, I didn't understand until I did. And it was when I sat down to lunch with Dr. Joe McCord I wasn't pleasant. I wasn't even nice. I called him Joe, disrespectfully on purpose, because one, I didn't want to be there. The company flew me out on their dime to sit down and meet with this guy who I'd seen on the ABC primetime video, but I didn't really know much about him. And I said, Joe, so if this product, when the bottle was looking like this, if you've seen the ABC primetime investigative report, if this product is so good, why'd you put it in a tablet? It's the worst possible delivery system there is. It's like less than 10% bioavailable. Why didn't you use a skin patch or a sublingual drop or something that's so much more bioavailable? Because I thought I knew something he didn't know. An Elliott Crescent Medal recipient, Nobel Prize, nominee and I'm like, okay. So that was first my arrogance. And he was so lovely is the only word that comes to mind. He put his arm on my shoulder and he said, son, let me explain to you something you clearly don't understand. And that's when he said activation. And he goes, you don't understand the difference between activation and supplementation, hence the answer to the question you just asked me. And it comes down to bioavailability. So put 1 in the chat if you understand bioavailability. If you've ever thought something about our product, which is a caplet, if there's something better out there, put a 1 in the chat that you thought, well, maybe I had that same concern. So at least I know I'm among my peers. And then when he said, and we're so just kind of let me set the setting. We're having breakfast in the Hilton Garden Inn in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he points over and he goes, you see the station over there where they put the complete plates up on top waiting for the servers to come get them underneath those orange lights? Keeps the food warm. I'm like, yeah. He goes, that's called a rheostat. That's supplementation. So if there's 1 plate, he can turn the heat down. If there's multiple plates, he can turn the heat up to keep them all warm. That's supplementation. So if you have a deficiency in some nutrient, whether it's calcium or magnesium or whatever the case, a little is good, but more is better. That's where they turn it up. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking that's exactly the root of my question. That's bioavailability. I'm thinking you're answering my question, but you're not really answering my question. You're just proving my point. And he could probably tell by my deer in the headlights look. He's like, okay, now look above you. And there was a fluorescent light above us at our little breakfast nook. He said, that is activation. That light is either on or it's off. And when it's on, it can't be more on. And when it's off, it can't be more off. It's all or nothing. And I said, I wanted to kind of give a little visual. So if this lock, I want to unlock the lock I got to make sure the key has the right combination to unlock that lock. So if I turn the key, the lock opens. That's activation. So he says in activation, we are turning the cells on and they are producing their own response and the remedy. So he said the difference in a supplement, the benefits in the bottle. In an activator, the benefits in your body based on what you take that's in the bottle. And now we call it what? Hashtag take it to make it. And I was like, I had this instant epiphany and I thought, oh my gosh. Well, first, then I just apologized profusely for calling him Joe because he educated. And I thought I'm going to be this arrogant chiropractor, go teach this world-renowned scientist something he doesn't already know. Like that again, for my first misstep and my humility, I walked away with my tail between my legs. But I got the concept. And that's when I fell in love with LifeVantage and the potential. I came back that weekend as the 114th distributor of this company. So my ID number is 000114. And so I saw the big picture. Well, 16 years later, on May 18th will be my 16-year anniversary. We still haven't come to fruition, or the world doesn't yet know the activation story. But if with you and I and the rest of the people that we know that we can teach, the more and more people get it, eventually it's going to get to that tipping point where the world will or the 100th monkey, if you're whatever your analogy you want to use, we will get to where it goes from a partial awareness to total awareness. And I'll close today with the diffusion of innovation bell curve to kind of hammer that point home. But when I understood what the supremacy was, and that's really the key, the supremacy of activation versus Band-Aid fixes, substandard Band-Aid fixes, or another attempts. It's just, maybe it's got a couple of those tumblers, but it's not the right key. It's not the right lock. We're forcing the issue and manipulating rather than activating. And there will always be a consequence to that. Even though there may be positive side effects, there's going to be some negative ones too, as we're firmly aware with the pharmaceutical industry. So that's the long, verbose answer to one, how I understood what activation was all about. Thank you, Dr. McCord. I will be forever in your debt for that. But it also reaffirmed for me why I was in that room on that fateful weekend at that time and why we're on this Zoom today together and why we're here with the Wellness Wednesday tribe. So thank you, everybody.
Oh my goodness. I don't know that I've heard that whole story, but I too feel like this was so placed purposefully in front of me. And I saw an ABC primetime report, and I had been in the wellness space for years up to that point, and I'd seen a lot of different things, but I could not believe what I had seen. And I literally said to myself, if half of what they're saying is true in this, and that was that Dr. Joe McCord was there, and they're doing a blood test, and like if what they're saying is true, I have to be a part of this. But Dr. Dondee, I mean, my mindset then was like, from a preventative standpoint, this is a no-brainer. I didn't think that I was dealing with a lot of different health issues, although after I started activating, all of these things started to improve in my life. From a health standpoint, from a sleep standpoint, from a brain standpoint, I could not get over, like I had taken a lot of supplements and a lot of things that maybe I saw a TV show and a doctor on a TV show was recommending a supplement or a commercial that somebody had recommended, like all these little things that you think, I'm going to grab that off the shelf and take that. They say that ingredient's supposed to be good for me. So it's funny because I had a cupboard full of supplements, though I didn't feel great. And so this has literally changed my world just in so many ways. But I wrote some questions down and you kind of answered some of that, but I don't want to leave anything missed. So let me go through, just like my first question is, so you kind of talked about this, but what is the basic fundamental difference between supplementation, taking precursors, peptides, and cellular activation? So just maybe in a quick synopsis.
So I've talked about activators versus supplementation. So again, supplements is trying to take something that you believe or you've been told that you're deficient in. That's why hence it's in the name. You're supplementing something you're not currently getting or that you're deficient in. That's the whole purpose. And it's a wonderful purpose. And supplements, for many people have benefited from me. I take supplements on a daily basis. And so they're different. If we have an activation option to get to a certain place or a supplement option to get to a certain place, activation is just better. It's quicker. It's more, it's supreme. But we have things that supplements do that activators don't because activators, that's not their intention. So it's kind of honoring biology, I guess is the easiest way. Well, precursors is kind of an upgrade to supplements, if you will. You're getting a part of something and your body takes that part and it adds something and gives you something else. So let's say the limitations of supplementation, if you take too little, you're not overcoming your deficiency, so you still have it, you just have a lesser version of it. But the downside to supplements, you could take too much and create your own problem. That's the inherent risk of an outside-in approach. But when you honor the inside-out approach, your body will always do what it's supposed to do when it needs to do it in the right amount, and there's never any side effects except positive. And people say, well, what about autoimmune disorders? Autoimmune disorders is your body mistakenly attacking something. It's not a normal thing. Autoimmunity is not normal. It's a mistake. It's an error, if you will. But precursors is kind of getting closer to the answer. It's giving your body something to work with, and it kind of molds it into something else. I'll give you kind of a graphic example. Let's say you've got 6 kids and you want to be resourceful, and you've got 6 hungry kids and you've got 6 eggs. And so you take 6 raw eggs and you add the precursor, and you add 212 degree water and 8 to 10 minutes of time, because your kids don't like raw eggs. And now you take a raw egg, you add the ingredients, or the raw egg is the precursor. You add the element of time and temperature at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And now you have a hard boiled egg. So it's literally just taking the form and changing the form by starting out with something, adding some things, and ending up in something else. Well, that works if you've got 6 kids. But what if you've got 10 kids, but you've only got 6 eggs? That's the limitation of precursors, because your body will only convert a precursor into what it needs based on how much precursor you give it. So now it's kind of back to the same supplement argument. A little is better if you have a deficiency, but you can take too much of a precursor and create a problem. But if you activate the pathway that the precursor and the supplement are trying a substandard hack to get to, you're still going to end up with either too little or too much. Or you could hit the sweet spot, but how often do you even know you're doing that? And so the precursors and now peptides is kind of a buzzword. Peptides is kind of a new thing. Kind of think of peptides like if you've got a necklace, a silver necklace with 100 individual links on the necklace. Consider like a peptide, like 10 individual links at a time. You can take 10 different peptides, link them together, and create the necklace, or you just empower your body to create the necklace it already knows how to do. It just might have gotten a little efficient. So peptides are good, but they're not a substitute for activation, nor is supplementation, and nor is precursors. They're just different means to a similar end. But if you want the be all end all, you have to honor your own biology, trust that your body knows what it's doing, and empower it to do it. And the only solution to that is activation. And so the people in the peptide camp and the supplement camp and the precursor camp, they're altruistic in nature. They're doing great things. They just don't understand the concept of activation, because if they did, they would convert. They would come over and say, well, there are still people that use candles. But when they find out about electricity, it's kind of it's an upgrade. It's really an upgrade. So, it's really as simple as that, fundamentally.
I love that. And empowering your own biology. That's it. Yeah. That's really what activation is.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah. That's a great term. By the way, it's so validating that you're here. I love this. So based off what you just shared, why should people consider activation over those things that you mentioned, letting their bodies do what they were designed to do?
Great question. And I don't know I took a lot of math in high school and college, and I just remember the phrase, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. We try through hacking, different types of biohacking, to shorten the line. Well, you can never shorten the distance between the 2 points, and the straight line is the easiest way. But sometimes, because we want something quicker, we don't honor our biology, because it takes on average 12 weeks to heal from something. We want to be healed yesterday. And so we're looking for these shortcuts. And so shortcuts are not a bad idea in theory, but you can't shortcut the human body. You just can't. You have to honor how it was created. And I remember, I'm old and I'm going to kind of give away my age. I'll be 60 in July, but I remember a TV commercial back in the 70s that talked about, it was a Parquet margarine commercial, and how it's almost like real butter, and that people can't even tell the difference. And the punchline is, you can't fool, or it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. And Mother Nature would just have a lightning bolt come down. And it's kind of a funny tagline, but you can't fool Mother Nature. You can't fool biology. You might want to and have a great desire to trick it, but you can't. And so when we're talking about supplementation and activation and all these other things, what makes the most sense is how can we easily and as seamlessly as possible, without creating negative side effects, how do we honor the biology that we were given and help it work most efficiently according to our biological design? And only activation asks those questions, because the other approaches are trying to take those 2 points and shorten them and find a hack to get there. And while it sounds compelling, and in theory it may work, in practical application, I have not yet found in my lifetime, and I don't know if we ever will, find it where we can actually shorten the distance between those 2 points, except just honor the fact we have to go, and we have to honor the time it takes, but the straight line is the most direct way, even though we may see something different or try to hack the system and shorten that time span. We just can't.
That's such a great answer. Oh my goodness. And by the way, I can't believe you're going to be 60. And I also remember that commercial. Yeah. You can't fool Mother Nature.
Nope.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So can you help us understand in layman's terms just exactly how activation works?
Yes, it's one of my most favorite things to talk about, because one, in its simplicity, which is really kind of the Achilles heel, because people go, it can't really be that simple. And the answer is yes, it actually is that simple. But we have to first honor our own biology as the starting point. How do we honor our biology, and what does it look like when our biology changes? So kind of think of a 6-year-old versus a 60-year-old. So the difference is 54 years, but we're both human beings. We've got all the same parts. One's just a little version of the other, but does a 6-year-old wake up in the morning with a different energy level than a 60-year-old? Now, it's not routine. I mean, yes or yes. The answer is obviously yes. It's not a routine thing for a 6-year-old to drink coffee, but 60-year-olds wake up, and the first thing, I know a lot of them by name, and I see them on a daily basis. They can't wait to get downstairs to have their first cup of coffee so they can get their eyes open and start dealing with the world. Well, the paradox is you just woke up. You should be refreshed and rejuvenated. Your body should be raring to go, filled with energy. Why do you need something else to give you energy? Well, the answer is not your caffeine dispenser, because, hello, you don't have one. And so you can't have an empty container that you don't already have biologically, but you can have cellular energy deficit. Many people deal with it. It's a normal part of aging. So the skin of a 60-year-old looks different than the skin of a 6-year-old. The rate in which they heal, a 6-year-old falls down and skins his knee, he heals very differently than the 60-year-old who falls down and skins their knee. It's just the difference in biology. So when we see that the effect of aging, which none of us can escape, no matter how much we try to hack or think we can, none of us escape aging. But can we slow it down? Yes, once we learn the mechanism. So, and it's slowing it down by restoring the efficiency to a pathway or an activation pathway that has gone inefficient or gone dormant, or because of our lifestyle changes or our nutritional deficiencies or our sleep deprivation or our stress levels, whatever it is. We have to look at those things and implement as many of them voluntarily, lifestyle choices, educated lifestyle choices. And the more we do that, the more we empower our biology. And guess what? When you empower your own biology, it responds favorably every single time. But when you trick it or you try to hack it into thinking or manipulating it into what you think it should do, it's always going to object. And that objection is the side effect of those approaches, because nobody likes being manipulated long term, and your body figures it out. And when it figures it out, you got to change the equation. But if you already are on the activation pathway, you've already there. You just got to extend it and look for other activating pathways, which is the entire approach of what we do here at LifeVantage, is looking for those activation pathways and honoring them. And how do you do that? Give your body the raw materials it needs to activate that pathway. And I'll talk to it when I'm going to talk here shortly about a book and that kind of gives a little bit deeper discussion of how that is and literally the simplicity of it.
It's so true. All of this. And honestly, on Wellness Wednesday, we say it almost every week, but in order to get well, fix the cell. In order to stay well, fix the cell. In order to age well, fix the cell. It's really about getting down to that root piece of it. And that was something that it took me, my own health crisis. And I think that's common for a lot of people. They hit their own health crisis, and all of a sudden they pay attention. It's like, I got to do something to fix this. So why do you think it is that people are so eager to grab a hold of that quick fix, that instant response, if you will. You talked about that just a little bit, but versus trusting their own body. Why do you think that is?
I think it really it's an individual answer. Great question. And I think it's an individual, very unique and specific to the individual person. But in my opinion, what I've seen through 28 years almost of being a chiropractor and literally having thousands and thousands of these discussions with people, I talk almost every day. And I'm very part-time in chiropractic practice after a 16-year hiatus raising my kids. Thank you, LifeVantage. But on a daily basis, when I see patients, I have the discussion of what I call the 5 most dangerous words in healthcare. Maybe it will go away. Because people will think, you know what, I've been having this. And it's like, I see them after the 3rd week of trying everything that's not working. And then they come in and say, Doc, my back's been killing me for 3 weeks. Well, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I leaned over to tie my shoes. Well, tying your shoes doesn't promote back pain, but neglecting your body and the things that it needs for decades does. It's just that's the straw that literally broke the camel's back. And so having these discussions, why are they motivated for the quick fix? I think to answer your question, Marilee, they're just prompted by their own unique experience because they woke up with pain. They have a headache. They just bent over to tie their shoes and now they've got back pain they didn't have yesterday. So the urgency or the immediacy in their approach is based on what they're presently feeling. But that's unfortunately the byproduct of a responsive or reactionary population. Here in our country, we are very much reactionary. We are not proactive. We are reactive. So you don't go to a doctor to learn how to be well. You go to your doctor to learn how to have less symptoms, or what can you cut out of me, or what can you give me with a prescription on it that's going to give me less symptoms that I have now because I don't like this. This sucks. That's the prompting. And so it's the urgency is I want to get there yesterday. This pain sucks. I want to get there yesterday. And well, the reality is this started 20 years ago when you started digging your grave slowly with your fork by snacking and eating all the desserts and justifying it. You didn't gain 60 pounds overnight. It took 10 years. You're not going to get well overnight. It took 10 years. So you earned your way here. You're going to have to earn your way the other direction, but you got to start making lifestyle choices. And that's when people are kind of slapped upside the head with the reality is, okay, that quick fix sounds good. It's enticing. It's compelling, but it's not realistic for a long-term benefit. It's lifestyle change. And it's still, people want to ignore that and still try the quick approach. And when that doesn't work anymore, sometimes people will continue down that pathway and sometimes they'll just throw up their hands and surrender and go, okay, I'm going to trust you on this, doc. I'm going to do it, but it's not usually their first approach. There's usually something else and something else and something else that has to happen. So activation and honoring your body's biology is not something typical people do unless they're a wellness practitioner or they have a lifestyle that they were there before and then they got a bad diagnosis from their doctor and like, oh, heck no, I got so much to live for. I'm changing everything. Sometimes it's just the severity or the gravity of the situation, but you cannot make decisions that will circumvent lifestyle choices and natural biology, no matter how hard you try and no matter how much you want. You can't. It's impossible to circumvent or shortcut natural biology, but people want to. And so that's when they kind of have to, by default, when that doesn't work and that doesn't work and that doesn't work, okay, I'll try it your way, doc. But it's usually very rarely the first approach, unfortunately.
It's really true. And, one of the things that I've really started to just be very mindful, my husband and I both, is that, I think about finances. If you're smart, you start younger and you think about and plan for the long game. When it comes to health, we don't often do that. We hit the panic button and it's like, oh my goodness, I've got these symptoms, something's wrong. What can I fix now? But versus, I wish, now knowing what I know about activation and what's possible and what you can unlock, I wish I would have started decades ago from a preventative standpoint to really prepare for the long game. But man, have I been impressed about what can happen with activation. And now it is all about the long game. I want the healthiest brain. I don't want to just live long. I want to have the most vibrant, optimal health when I'm there. I want to live long and strong and be healthy and vibrant all the way. And honestly, I feel like we have really something extraordinary on our hands. And I love that. And especially when it comes to longevity. So there's so much right now that's out there that's relating to, in the news, like we see it in the headlines, that's relating to longevity when it comes to science and research and all of those things. But how do you feel about where this is going and where LifeVantage is in the science and activation, how does that fit into this longevity conversation?
Great question. And it's interesting because right now we're living in one of the most unique times in human history as far as wellness is concerned, because we have now more than ever a population of people that are leaning in. And because they've tried, and this is really, I mean, if you look at the organized system here in America, the prevailing health care system is not health care at all. It's sickness care. And it has been, people have, and I don't want to misspeak here. People should trust their doctors. And the doctors should also realize the responsibility that you have, that your patients trust you. And so you should have their best interest in mind, not your own, whether it be financially or accolades or to write a book, whatever the case. And I've never once met a doctor that didn't ultimately have altruistic reasons for becoming a doctor, but I have met doctors that have gotten blinded by their own success and started really losing focus on why they became a doctor in the first place. And it happens all the time. Well, I think right now we're kind of at a crossroads in the world where, one, with the pandemic we had, we learned a lot of things. We've learned to ask different questions, not necessarily embrace something right away until it's been vetted out and proven. And I think with the track record, we've got people asking questions they weren't previously asking, not to distrust their doctors, but ask better questions of their doctors. And there was this whole entire marketing campaign for many years that said, ask your doctor if this is right for you. The problem was we put the patients in control of the conversation, not the doctors, and doctors got intimidated by that. And so they became less and less available to their patients and having open discussion. It was a 15-second to 30-second interaction. Here's a prescription. I'll see you next time. No questions, asking about the origin. What do you sleep like? What's your habits like? Are you positive or negative? What's the stress level in your life? What are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you hydrated? None of those questions were being asked. And it's not because the doctors didn't understand the validity in asking those questions. There's just nothing they can do to intervene. The only intervention strategies the typical medical doctor has is the sharp end of a scalpel and a pen on a prescription pad, because that is their lane. And so we have gotten so trusted when they say your doctor, well, all doctor means is you spent 8 years on average in college to learn some kind of trade or some kind of an approach to healthcare. And doctor by its definition means teacher. Well, when organized healthcare lost that variable of teaching and just went to preaching, we started having negative consequences. Well, they're getting back to the reality is now oftentimes patients are more educated than the doctors because the doctors are in their lane. They know a lot about a very little focus, but patients are learning more and more and more broad, and they're having conversations that are leading to a greater relationship with their doctors. So the long answer to your question is people that are seeking knowledge are going to get there quicker than the doctors who sought knowledge and now they're practicing. They're in practice and they're not always, and I'm generalizing, they're not always up on the newest things, and some are. But the patients are seeking out doctors that are have the most variety or the most widespread understanding. And it kind of there was a very specific moment in time. 2002, this is my opinion. So now I'm going to kind of shift to the world according to Dr. Dondee. So in 2002, there was a book written called Never Be Sick Again by Raymond Francis. And when I read this book, it was almost like that breakfast conversation with Dr. McCourt. It blew my ever-loving mind. And in the book, and I love ChatGPT because I asked I could read the book and highlight things, but I asked ChatGPT to give me a synopsis of this book. And so in this, it's the book, again, Never Be Sick Again, Raymond Francis, he argues that the root cause of illness are deficiencies in key nutrients, the accumulation of toxins in the body, and the breakdown of cells due to improper care of the body. So his whole entire stance or position was that there is only one disease known to human beings, one disease. Now, we may call it all kinds of different things and labels and diagnoses, but one disease, and that disease is cellular malfunction. And there's only two causes of cellular malfunction. In fact, every disease, every diagnosis, every human ailment has as its common thread cellular malfunction by definition, inarguable. And there's only two causes, according to Mr. Francis's extremely broad approach. And he got lambasted by his colleagues because it was so out of the box, but it's proven now to be true. The first one is deficiency. The cells need something, but they're deficient in it. And because they don't have it, they start to malfunction. And if left long enough, we're going to call it some kind of disease, whether it's an inconvenience or terminal. And the only other cause of cellular malfunction is toxicity. So the cells are being poisoned by something, either because of our internal environment, because of our lifestyle choices, or our external environment, like Wi-Fi and 5G and living under high voltage power lines that lead to cancer, or as Aaron Brockovich exquisitely pointed out, cancer causing agents in groundwater. And we know these things. You know, you don't have to listen to the radio or news long enough. There's a class action lawsuit against somebody who poisoned something that caused human problems. So toxicity and deficiency. Well, guess what? Activation and honoring the body and equipping it with what it needs can overcome both of those issues and get back to sufficiency and normal biological function, which we call homeostasis. So that very, very strong planting of the flag that cellular malfunction has two causes, deficiency and toxicity, was groundbreaking. It was revolutionary, but now we know it's true. Well, if you take that logic, and I'm an avid reader. So there was a book published last year by Dr. Casey Means, a Stanford-educated medical doctor. And if you look at, I looked up the 5 most prestigious medical university on planet Earth, and they are in order. Where is it here? Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, and Cambridge. So a Stanford graduate is no slouch. This lady knows her stuff. Well, this book, Good Energy, that she wrote, blew my ever-loving mind. And when that happens to me, because I'm an avid reader, I have to stop and I have to pause and I have to really soak it up. What is it that I'm getting? And usually it's the beauty and the intricacy of the simplicity. And so the reason it blows your mind is like, it can't be that simple, but it really is, because we're talking about biology. Well, in her book, Good Energy, she says this, that so many common ailments are rooted in metabolic dysfunction, and by optimizing our body's energy production at the cellular level, that we can achieve improved health outcomes. Well, think about this. Look at the title, Good Energy, but look at the subtitle, the surprising, keyword, surprising connection between metabolism and limitless health. So when a Stanford-educated doctor puts the subtitle of her book, The Surprising Connection, it caught her off guard when she started looking at metabolism. And metabolism is just how the cells burn energy and how they grow and adapt. And it's all activation. So this is an activation story without using the word activation, but she talks about the things that are important in that. And this is kind of the conclusion if she could wrap up her book. She said that metabolic dysfunction, which she terms bad energy, is at the root of many chronic illnesses, including obesity, anxiety, and heart disease. She emphasized that bad energy is caused by, get this, poor diet, sleep deprivation, chronic stress, and environmental toxins. Kind of goes right back to what Raymond Francis said in his book, Never Be Sick Again. She just planted that flag deeper, and now she brought it to a bigger audience, but she's using these, and not that Raymond Francis came up with the idea. He was just the first person to codify it and actually put it in words that made sense. And Dr. Means just kind of took it and ran with it. Well, I am, as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly looking for people to help me gain an edge. And Tony Robbins is a guy that I've gone to. Marcy and I have been to many of the Tony Robbins events, 3-day, 4-day, single day, and we love his approach. Well, he wrote a book with Dr. Peter Diamandis called Life Force. And so this came out last year too. And so in this book, they started getting beyond now honoring what he said. And when he talked about some of the things to do or to implement in your life after you would get empowered by reading this book, guess what number 1 was? Supplements and nutraceuticals. And he had a list of 10. Guess what was not included in the list of 10? Activation. Not because it doesn't work, it's because he's simply ignorant of the term and how it works. But number 1 was supplements. And guess what the number 1 thing he mentioned in supplements? NAD. And how did he talk about getting to NAD? The first thing he talked about, precursors, which we just discussed a couple minutes ago. So he mentioned the precursors of NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, and AD is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So you start with NMN, like raw eggs, you add heat and time, and you get NAD. It's a precursor. How about just give your body the ingredients it needs to make its own NAD without the precursor? It's just again, the shortest distance between two points is a straight line. The straight line is activation. Precursor may kind of take you convoluted way, and at time your body has to make it. Well, the other one is NR, which also mentions nicotinamide riboside. There's two products out there. I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want to give them any light, but they are precursors. The end result is the body makes NAD. How about just take the ingredients to make NAD without the precursor? It's a much quicker way, and you don't need the extra steps. Well, he goes on to say that there's other things like detoxification. Hello, Raymond Francis talked about detox and sufficiency. And then guess what he talked about with regard to sufficiency? Milk thistle and glutathione. Both things that we are very, very common. We know because those are part of our activation story. And the last one that he talked about, which was pretty compelling, gut health. And we pretty much own the market once people understand what activation in gut health looks like. And it was just, again, from Tony Robbins and Dr. Peter Diamandis, world-renowned people that are very highly revered, speaking our language without actually coming down with the word activation. They're just so close, but yet so far away. And so that's how I know, one, we're in the right place. We have a story before its time. We have a story before people have the wherewithal to understand the magnitude and the impact. But we've got people from all different walks of life, authorities, innovators that are talking about it. We just haven't translated it into their language, into our language, because we haven't talked about activation versus supplementation, precursors, or peptides yet. But that's what I'm hoping this call, and the longevity code is very simple. You can't hack the longevity code. You can get there, but again, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that's activation. And we are, the LifeVantage community, the LifeVantage tribe, we all know, the Activation Nation, we all know, our voice just isn't loud enough yet to have a global impact, but that is coming. And how I know is because we are so close to the message. And people are getting so close. Once they realize who we are, how long we've been here, and what we bring to the table with our activation, scientifically validated activation story, not nice color for brochures and your brother's, neighbor's, landscaper's uncle used to have migraines that doesn't have migraines anymore, but you don't know any of the people in that chain. It's like, it's truth, and truth will always eventually come out. And we're so close, Marilee. We're so close. Drop a 2 in the chat if you can get goosebumps like I'm feeling right now, because we're this close to world-renowned understanding of what we've got. It's just a matter of us getting our voices out there long enough and empowering people, because I can feel it.
Oh, it is so exciting. Honestly, it's just so cutting edge. I have to ask this question, and I'm throwing this at you as just a last minute. So 1, any final thoughts? But 2, we have a lot of different products. I know it started with that ABC Primetime focused on our flagship product, that Protandim NRF2. Like, to me, that's a baseline must have. Everybody's got to have it. I know I always start there, but what are your, Dr. Dondee, what are your absolute must have activators from LifeVantage?
I'm glad we have them, because they are, and if you look at the 3 theories of aging, the most prominent theories of aging that have gone back, 25, 30 years ago, one is the oxidative stress or free radical theory of aging. So when you can slow the body's damage that is extended, or damage that it sustains because of free radicals, and slow that down by activating the biological pathway to produce the antioxidant enzymes, we're so far ahead of the game. We have that. That was our foundation. That's the foundation. And I'm going to try to build a castle here. So starting with the firm foundation of lowering oxidative stress to every cell in the body puts you, so we can quantify that, lowering oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. So in essence, if you just look at the numbers there, by lowering oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days, you are improving cellular efficiency by 40% in 30 days. Imagine 40% improvement in efficiency in anything. Are you going to get a little response or a big response, whether you feel it or not? And that's not my opinion. That's science. That's 28 peer-reviewed published studies that back that up. So that's the foundation. Now, if you look at a construction reference, let's build some framework. Let's add the framing of the house, the overall structure of the house. And that is going to be cellular communication, cellular cleanup, cellular rejuvenation. That's the NAD story. And so you've got NAD, which is the framework on top of a solid foundation to build this castle that we want to move into, because maybe we're tired of living in the straw house or the wood house, or we want to live in the mansion because we know at some point the big bad wolf is going to come. And he's going to huff and he's going to puff, and our lifestyle will dictate what our lifestyle, our inquisitive nature, and our implementation of what we know is going to determine whether we get blown over by a minor stressor in life or whether we withstand it and say, bring it on. I got an S on my chest. I'm bulletproof. Come on. There's no kryptonite that can touch me. And so that's the foundation of Protandem NRF2, the framework of Protandem NAD synergizer. Now we just got to add power. And power and the ability or the plumbing too. You can add NAD into that. The power is the mitochondria. And in Casey Means' book, Good Energy, she goes deep into mitochondria. Because if you have a cellular expectation that you want your body to do what it's designed to do, you have to equip it to do that. And sometimes cells run out of energy before they should. And that's when aging, we start to feel the effects of aging. Well, if we can turn that energy source back on, because when your car runs out of gas, either you got to, one, hitchhike, go get a gas tank and have somebody bring you, a gallon, pour it in and drive to the nearest gas station, or you stay ahead of it and you don't run out of gas. And so when your cells run out of gas, we start looking for other things. We go to our doctor. When your cells run out of gas, you have things like fatigue, memory loss, brain fog, waking up tired, wound healing that isn't happening the way you'd like it. Those are all evidence of cellular energy deficit. And when you can turn that back on with the Protandem NRF1 synergizer and mitochondria production, you just powered and plumbed that entire mansion. And now all we can do with our lifestyle is figure out what kind of siding, what kind of roofing, whether we have solar lights or not. And that is our lifestyle choices of hydration, nutrition, rest, activity, positive mindset, and all the things that come along with wellness. But the precursor foundations, cellular activation of less stress, meaning more efficiency, more energy, and better communication and cellular turnover, that is the answer to the human challenges why most people go to their doctors. And most people, probably 99 out of 100 people on planet Earth, have never even heard the story, let alone know that they've got options to make those kinds of choices. But that is also changing. And I mentioned to you before we press the record today, so this is Wednesday. 2 days ago, you guys probably have already heard this, there was the whole thing about the dire wolf. You guys heard about that? How there's a company called Colossal that de-extincted a wolf that's been extinct for 13,000 years. And I don't know why. I wasn't here 13,000 years ago. I don't know why the last dire wolf took its breath 13,000 years ago, but I do have a frame of reference. And if you guys, I remember watching a movie called Jurassic Park. And if you guys remember the scene in the first Jurassic Park movie where Dr. Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum's character, he was talking to Laura Dern, Dr. Slatter, and he was talking to her about chaos theory. And so I wanted to make sure I got the lines right. So this is what he said. He said, and they're talking about there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex that's trying to break through. See, the Tyrannosaurus doesn't obey set patterns or park schedules. It's the essence of chaos. And Dr. Slatter says, I'm still not clear about chaos theory. He said, okay, it simply deals with the unpredictability in complex systems. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park, you get rain instead of sunshine. And then he says this is the whole golden statement. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. And so this has now become not just a scientific discussion, but a moral and ethical discussion. Well, this just came out a couple weeks ago. The Economist magazine, cover story, Rise of the Superhuman. And look closely what's in the hands of this caduceus. Syringes. Wow. And so this right here, one, it raised my eyebrows such that I had to buy this article or buy that for it. But what it's talking about is changing cellular DNA. It's talking about activation, but not in the context that we know it. It's talking about DNA manipulation. And this is the whole thing about honoring biology. When you manipulate the body, you may or may not get a positive benefit. But you will always have a negative benefit or a negative result. It's just a matter of time because it doesn't honor biology. So when we have that cover story of The Economist, this is March issue, and this is what the cover story of that Time magazine article is going to look. It doesn't come out until May 12th, but it says extinct. This is Remus. He's a dire wolf, the first to exist in over 10,000 years. Endangered species could be changed forever. And what the CEO of Colossal is talking about is that within 3 years, we're going to have woolly mammoths walking around on the earth. And I don't know why woolly mammoths went extinct. I just know that they did. But I know that a dire wolf is a top predator. We saw how Jurassic Park turned out. We are now living in the modern day Jurassic Park because dire wolf is a top tier predator. What happens? We release those back into the wild and they start killing things and making other things extinct because we thought it would be cool to bring a character from what is the clones, the whatever the TV show was that prompted that. I'll think of it here in a second. They filmed it in Croatia. But it really comes down to this, Marilee, and thank you again for this invitation. I just want to put this thought, is that sometimes we ask, can we do something? But we don't ask, should we? And that's one thing that LifeVantage is asking, because we are not manipulating biology. We are honoring biology by figuring out ways to naturally turn back on the cellular efficiency to do what the body was already designed to do. It just got inefficient at doing it, or because of our lifestyle choices, it kind of went semi-dormant. We're just reactivating the body. And that is really the key principle here. But if we look at this is called the diffusion of innovation. And so this is how people embrace change. And 2.5% of people embrace it because it's new and they're innovators. And then you've got the early adopters, 13.5%. It sounds compelling. I'm in. And that 16% of the population are kind of the early birds. Well, then you've got the early minority, people that's waiting long enough to see other people's experience. And if they don't die or things work out positive, then maybe they'll do it. And then the early minority, then the late majority, or the early majority, and the late majority is like, okay, well, these people haven't died. Those people haven't died. I don't want to be left out. So then they join. And then the laggards just don't give a rip about anything. They're not going to change no matter what you do. Or say they're just content with their candle and they're not going to change anything. And so it's not a matter of who's right, who's wrong. It's just different viewpoints of the same topic. And I found this to kind of describe it. So one guy's saying 9, the other guy's saying 6. They're both right. They're just looking at it from a different vantage point. So it's just, when it says, just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. And so for those of you who are on here, Wellness Wednesday Tribe, put a 3 in the chat if you're vibing with this. And if you shared this link with other people, just give the person who sent you the link the ability and permission to be right and you to be right too. They just may know something you haven't quite yet learned. But I'm inviting you to do this. Do your due diligence. Ask yourself, like what Marilee said, if just half of this is true, what could the world be like if we embraced this and we planted the flag and we took on this charge of making sure people understand what activation is? And then just ask yourself, what would that be like when someone comes up to you with tears in their eyes, like I do to Blue Elam? Thank you. Because that one phone call you made to me changed the entire course of my life. There will be people that do that to you on a grand scale. Think of how awesome that's going to feel. Now, people go, well, what if they think I'm crazy? What if they think you're crazy? What if you don't say anything and they hear about it from someone else and then they come to say, you knew about this and you didn't tell me? I would much rather handle the person that thinks I'm crazy than try to apologize my way out of why I didn't share it with somebody who I claimed to love. And they said, I thought you loved me. I thought you were my friend. Why didn't you tell me this? Didn't you know I was going through these things in my life, or I just lost this person in my life that probably could have been changed with this or helped her in some way? That's really the ethical and moral responsibility that we have. It's the same moral responsibility I have every day as a chiropractor, every day as a wellness advocate to 1, do no harm, and 2, do everything in my power to share my passion, my purpose, and help people get to a conclusion they haven't quite gotten to because they haven't asked the compelling question yet. Well, I want to invite you to lean in and ask the question, what is this cellular activation thing? What does it look like and feel like when my body's honoring its own biology and optimizing and working to the best of its possible capacity? That's what LifeVantage story is. That is our activation story. And right now, we're the only people talking about it. But we need that to change. And when it does, the ripple effect is going to be felt all over the world, and people are going to come around to that way of thinking and own it and honor it and embrace it because it makes the most truth. It is the quickest way between 2 points, is that straight line, and that straight line is activation. So, Marilee, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I hope you guys at Wellness Wednesday, you tribe, I hope you guys got value out of this. Put a 4 in the chat down below if you're getting some values, or show me some hearts. Tell me what you think about it. I hope this was time well spent.
Oh my goodness, I have loved this conversation. I always learn so much from you, Dr. Dondee, and we feel your heart and your passion for this. And honestly, I can just attest, this has been the most incredible gift. And literally last night was on a Zoom, hearing story after story of people in tears saying, if I had not heard about this, and the stories were incredible. And so it's a goosebumper every time. I love what we have our hands on, and this is just an honor to be here with you tonight. So thank you for your time. I so appreciate you, and thank you to every one of you who took the time out to be here with us tonight. I hope you found value in this. And please get back to the person that invited you to watch this and ask them for more information about how can I get activated. Tell me about this activation. So with that, thank you again, Dr. Dondee, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. God bless.
It's my absolute honor and pleasure. God bless.